friends. Welcome to the Dreamfruit Story Corner. We're going to visit the lunar tail for the 7th lunar cycle of 2026, which is a Gemini lunation. And it takes us from June 14th through July 13th. And our moon is going to be full on June 29th. Okay, there's a lot going on. And I want to focus our attention because there could very easily be a whole lot to talk about and think about, and it could feel overwhelming. Instead, what I want to do is just bring us to the basic message of this lunar cycle. Inside the Lunar Tales for Earthlings, we are looking at the story of the Upkeep Moon. And this is a time when we keep on keeping on. We don't give up the fight, we don't lose hope, we don't surrender the cause, we simply do what needs to be done. And the Sabian symbol for this lunar cycle is a man trimming palms. And so we can assume that we're talking about palm trees, and we want to think about what happens when palm trees are or are not trimmed. And also just the actual labor of it. It's something that has to keep happening. It's something you have to keep doing for the health of the tree, but also as the palm tree is maintained with those lower palms being trimmed out. If it's a date palm, it allows the fruit to grow a little bit higher away from the creatures who might be scavenging or who might be grazing. And if somebody is actually wanting their labor to bear fruit, it's really especially good to keep that fruit a little bit out of reach. So again, in the world of Dreamfruit, if you are new to the world of Dreamfruit, or if this is your little happy place that you visit every month, I just want to remind us all that we're living inside a framed story in this Dreamfruit realm. This is a storied realm of magic and belonging, and the framed story goes a little bit like this. The living earth has been imperiled, and our creative nature is rising up. And these two things are true at the same time. We are all reminded that, yeah, it's not an easy time. Ecosystems are absolutely in stress. The human culture, wherever you are, is in stress. Our climate, the oceans, the forests, we know that our living earth has been imperiled. And it's easy to forget, but it's also equally true that our creative nature is rising up. This is what we want to remember and train our eyes on a regular basis to see the solutions that are already in play, that are already taking shape, to find our own inborn, honest, authentic response to what is the nature of our time. Now, we're not wanting to just jump to happy place when we think about our creative nature rising up. We're always holding the context in mind. And so this context, yeah, it's not an easy one. This is not an easy time, but this is why we turn to the story of earth and sky. This is why we seek to remember ourselves as having agency inside of this story, narrative agency. The story that we're telling and the questions that we're carrying will inform the actions that we take and the ways that we move and travel together. So we're all traveling together in this world of Dreamfruit, and we're Earthlings in training. We're seeking to remember ourselves as deeply woven into the fabric of life, and we do this in 3 main ways. This story corner is one of the ways because it happens every month, and this nature-based time is something that's a birthright for us as Earthlings. We can entrain ourselves to cycles of light and dark, seasonal cycles, lunar cycles, sunrise and sunset. These are ways that we can refresh ourselves, not lock into the grind that our overculture is pushing us toward, but instead to acknowledge that sometimes it's a bright, long day, the peak of summer, Sometimes it's a long, dark night, that sweet quiet of winter. And when we entrain ourselves, we know cycles of rest are totally okay. We know that cycles of activity are absolutely legitimate and that nothing is permanent, that change is a part of our journey. So nature-based time is a big pathway toward that remembering ourselves as earthlings. And another pathway is the actual allyship, magical allies and animism, bearing in mind that intelligence exists beyond just the human world, that there is an innate brilliance in a forest's breathing, and that the creatures and the soil and the organisms in the soil and the clouds themselves all conspiring, literally breathing together to create life. And so this magical allyship or this animistic lens helps us remember that we are in a dance of participation and reciprocity. And the third pathway is also something that we practice here in the Dreamfruit Story Corner, and that is activating the deep imagination. And this is another way that we remember ourselves as connected with something. When we allow our deep imagination to be toned and present and in listening, we understand that there is a story way beyond the overstory or the dominant narrative, and we can dream something better. And so these pathways help us kind of reawaken ourselves into our natural state of radical belonging, and that is what we're up to today. One of the key pieces about the world of Dreamfruit is how we enter the story. We don't have to lead with our rational mind all the time. In fact, we can soften that part of our brain every so often and allow images and stories and the dream logic that dwells already all around us to gently settle into our psyche. And so the images and the symbols that we explore every month, the weird and strange magical imagery and the little romps that we take through this dreamscape are really there to sort of drop into your Imaginarium and carry through the month as a question, as a curiosity, and as a way of navigating. So I'm just going to invite you to soften your rational mind, settle back for a moment as we enter the dream of the Upkeep Moon. And in this dream of the Upkeep Moon, we take our place as Earth's beloveds, only to find that loudmouths have driven the caretaker from the grounds. Gardens are now unkempt, generations of care and knowledge lost. This spirit of place has been harmed and neglected. How could we possibly meet its needs? We take up our shears, our muscles remembering ancestral work, our shoulders satisfied in their tiredness. Small acts of care ripple through our bodies and through the web of life. And are we humble in our efforts? And do young new shoots show their faces? Yes. Steady tending protects the weave. Practice the keeper's craft. Steady tending protects the weave. Practice the keeper's craft. So just a refresher. In the story, we kind of stitch these little vignettes together, moon by moon. You can think of them like pearls on a string. And the story that we were in last month during the Taurus lunation was really about courtship. And we remember that we must fortify what we love by making offerings of beauty, by singing songs of remembering. And so this is where we're coming from as we enter this lunar cycle. And so we have been kind of wooing the wild future. We've been shining up our feathers and becoming the world loving itself, becoming irresistible agents for a flourishing world. And so what we see now is that we are taking our place as Earth's beloveds. We want to show up to fulfill on this courtship. And as we do, we discover something deeply disturbing, and that is that there are loudmouths that have driven the caretakers from the grounds. So you can imagine that we're stepping into this beautiful garden that we've been wooing our wild future in the prior moon courtship. And we get there and we say, yes, we are the beloveds, we are here. And the first thing we discover, neglect. The spirit of the place has been abandoned, and we have lost generations of care and knowledge. So, and then of course there's going to be a crisis of doubt. How could we possibly make up for this? How could we possibly meet the needs of this place? It's like we're starting all over again from the ground up. And yet we pick up our shears. Sometimes you just have to do the work, and the body remembers. The body remembers, and these small acts of care ripple through us and into the web of life. And that is when we understand being humble in our efforts allows these young new shoots to show their faces. This steady tending is what protects the weave. So the keeper's craft, what might that be for you? And when is it too tight? And when is it too loose? And I think that gardening is a wonderful metaphor for this question. When we're thinking about the keeper's craft and what it is when we lose those sort of generations of care, a place that has been tended in a loving way, there's a stewardship, there's a generational knowledge that accumulates. And the cycles are understood and can be danced with. And instead of that, we walk in and see that, there's been no tending. The spirit of the place has been neglected. How are we ever going to find a way to tend this place? And we just do it. We just pick up and do. And you know that sometimes when you're pruning and weeding and clearing a place, it's very easy to go a little bit overboard. And this is true in anything. It's true, I want to mention, it's true in activism for people who are doing, actual engaged work right now for the benefit of our world, for the benefit of the United States as a country, as a society, to support our social fabric and mending all the ways that public trust has been eroded. For those people, if you're one of them, I just want you to know, this is the month to, find a way for steady action that doesn't deplete you. We really, really don't want to burn out. We want to be able to do this in a steady way. Okay, continuing with the garden metaphor, sometimes we're a little too loose. Sometimes we're a little too casual. And when you let one of those weeds go just a little too long. So not too tight, not too loose. And how do you tell? How do you know how to strike that balance? And we want to see how it shows up for us. All right, now about this month. This month is astrologically a pretty wild month. And I know that there's a lot of folks talking about July of 2026. And when I was writing the Dreamfruit story last year for this year, I could see that there's a lot coming up in this month. And I feel like in those times like this, it's just helpful to focus on, what's sort of right up in front of you. And so this is why I tell the story. When we work in story, it allows our own psyche to find its navigational preference, to seek its own level of engagement with the energies of the time. The energies, the story of now, the astrology, what's happening on earth and sky, it's just going to happen. Yeah, the cosmos is going to cosmos. All of that is going to happen. And when we just allow ourselves to settle in, be with what is, ask the question, what, if you were to pick up your shears today, what would you be tending? What would you be pruning away? What is the day-to-day maintenance that needs your attention and care? That said, we know that Mercury will be stationing retrograde on June 29th, which also happens to be the day that the moon will be full. And we also know that Jupiter will be moving into Leo on June 29th or 30th, depending on where you are. And, you know, there's a whole lot of stuff going on that first week of July, which happens to be the 250th anniversary of the United States independence. And we have a whole lot of the outer planets are going to be forming their exact aspects that first week of July. So we're really looking at a pretty significant turn, a pretty significant pivot. Again, with story and symbol, I will share that the Sabian symbol for this full moon is an angel carrying a harp. So it's really a time that we can think about turning the corner inside of each of us. There's an opportunity to hear something, grace, to hear grace. There's an opportunity to receive something hopeful, perhaps a benevolent intervention. We can be slowing down. Mercury is very happy to help us slow down. Chiron is in Taurus. Mars is also in Taurus. So it's a nice time for slowing down in that way. So again, seek that level of engagement, seek the level of activation of the nervous system, and understand that Mercury will be retrograde from June 29th, the full moon, until into July. It'll be July 23rd before it turns back to its direct travel. So yeah, just remembering the dignity in small tasks, understanding that those small tasks can be absolutely enchanting, and the demands of the mundane can be a delight. And also, we like to, in Dreamfruit, think about who or what would be your magical ally for this month to navigate these themes. And of course, if you have a favorite pair of shears, they could be your ally this month. Marie Laveau, the ancestor priestess of New Orleans, is a wonderful ally, and I think she could be especially helpful now. And I'm saying this because she was a Virgo. Now, I know that we're not in Virgo, but one thing that Virgo teaches us is that steady tending, steady upkeep is absolutely a magical path. And Marie Laveau was known to not conduct her magic until she had thoroughly cleaned the house. So we know that part of the magic is this sort of regular upkeep, the cycle of the mundane. Another ally for this time could be your favorite broom. If you have a good broom, maybe it's your friend this month. Or, you know, we are in a Gemini lunation, so what about a comic book? What about a mixtape? And now that I've said that about a comic book, I want to suggest, may I suggest, two wonderful comic books, and especially pertinent right now is Persepolis, which was a graphic novel written by now ancestor Marjane Satrapi, who is an Iranian-born woman, artist, activist, who passed away recently and at a young age. And so we are sorry to lose her, but we are grateful for her work. And if you haven't read Persepolis or seen it, it was adapted for film, this might be the month to enjoy that story. It's her coming of age story in Iran at the time of the Islamic Revolution, which I know we are all thinking a little bit more about Iran and its culture and its history and how it connects to our culture and history here in the United States, if you're watching from the US. And then we are also inside the world of Dreamfruit. We love practicing wishcraft. We work with Jan Spiller's New Moon Astrology, which gives us suggestions every month for how to set your compass for what you're seeking to create or seeking to attract. And so some themes for this lunar cycle to wish around: social connection, neighborly bonds, curiosity, and learning. All Gemini themes, all really good themes to sort of set your compass on when you're thinking about the directions you want to lean into in the days ahead. And just to mention this Jupiter in Leo, so this is very, Leo brings a very charming, very warm, very playful energy. It can be attractive, radiant. It can inspire radical self-care and creative delight. So this is definitely on offer as Jupiter moves into Leo, again, shortly after the full moon this month. And always knowing that Jupiter makes everything a little bit bigger, or a lot bigger. So it's finishing up its journey through Cancer. And as it winds its journey down through the sign of Cancer toward the end of June, you want to think about water. And everything gets just even a little more amplified in those final days of a planet in a sign. And so check water, check your plumbing, notice what's going on with your watershed, and then it'll step into this sign of Leo. It'll amplify these energies of joy and radiant delight and creativity and self-care and play, and it can also amplify pridefulness. So anyone in a position of leadership might want to stay humble during this time. We don't want to overstep as Jupiter kind of gets itself settled into the sign of Leo after the full moon. So especially with this image of a man trimming palms, we do want to think about just being simple, mundane, humble. And the prompt for this month, again, is: when is it too tight? When is it too loose? How can you tell the difference for yourself? How do you find that sweet spot? What are the mundane things in your life that you can re-enchant or restore the dignity of? How do you allow your leaderful nature to remain humble and embrace a playful energy at the same time? Thank you so much for sharing this journey with me. I look forward to seeing you when we catch up with our heroes again in the July lunar cycle, which starts on July 14th, and that will be our Cancer lunation. Until then, may it go well for you, and may it go well for us all.